have with us Mr. Ketan Kothari, the director, Augmont-Gold for All. And in the gold industry for the last 20 years, he's been a part of advisory committee for future exchanges, ETFs and EGRs. And as you're all aware, Augmont is India's #1 platform encompassing refinery to retail with spot, digital gold, gold loans, EMI gold and sell old gold. Today, Mr. Ketan Kothari is going to be talking to us about hashtag Yellow Revolution.
My name is Ketan Kothari and I'm the Joint Secretary of India Bullion Jewelers Association. Today's presentation is about a daunting task that we have in India, and IBJA as an organization has been working, trying to solve this. But we realize unless the industry is together and unless we have like a revolutionary solution to this, we'll never be able to solve this problem. In the 60s, we had a similar kind of a problem. India had a major food shortage. It's only a revolution that changed it. The government got together, the whole farmers got together, and that is when we solved our problem related to food shortage with the Green Revolution. Similarly, in the 70s, we had one major issue with the milk shortage. So much so that after the initiatives were taken under the leadership of Dr. Verghese Kurian, we became the largest producer of milk in the world. So from a shortage scenario to becoming the largest producer in the world, it could only happen because there was a revolution, and this revolution was called the White Revolution. Today, for our industry, there is one big challenge, and we have seen that in the year 2012-13 also, when India faced such a huge current account deficit that the government had to take drastic steps, but that could become a problem again. The major problem is that we are completely dependent on imports of gold, and this needs to be solved. This can only be solved if the industry works together, and this can be solved with what we call as the hashtag Yellow Revolution. So, just to brief about what we are trying to do, or what we are trying to do at IBJA in order to solve this, along with the help of the government, I want to just play a short video.
There is a growing demand for gold in India, but a major problem. India faces a daunting challenge with an increasing demand for gold and almost no domestic gold mining. As a result, we rely heavily on imports, leading to a massive import bill impacting our economy. Introducing the Yellow Revolution, a visionary plan to transform India's gold market. The Yellow Revolution aims to link existing initiatives like the Electronic Gold Receipt (EGR) with Gold Monetization Scheme (GMS), Security Lending and Borrowing Scheme (SLB), and Gold Metal Loans (GML). Any customer can deposit their old gold with nearby jewelers for immediate conversion to EGR and choose to either convert to GMS, just the way you would convert to FD and earn annual interest, or SLB, by lending it to gold jewelry manufacturers and earn higher rate of interest. Jewelers and manufacturers will benefit too. Using EGR-based GML, they can significantly reduce their borrowing costs in process. The Yellow Revolution will address two critical issues to solve India's gold-related challenges: reduce import dependency, modernize the gold market. Making gold a financial asset and reducing the physical gold movement. The Yellow Revolution empowers India's gold market, making it self-reliant. Join the Yellow Revolution. Let's create a golden future for India.
So this in brief talks what Yellow Revolution is. Basically the idea is that there are lots of gold related products. It creates a lot of noise, it creates a lot of confusion. It can be simplified in the digital age, especially because we have seen the success of various other initiatives. And the biggest initiative has been the UPI, which solved the biggest problem that India had related to cash transactions. So gold industry can also take a similar route. Why do we see that this could be a problem? Imagine a few years down the line, we have a high gold price in the international market. The rupee depreciates further, and because India is a growing market, we have a huge demand, much higher than what we have today. That could lead to a massive bill. The import bills could go up to even $80 billion. And imagine if the crude oil price is also high. What would happen then is that the current account deficit will take a big hit, and in those scenarios, the government will only take an impromptu step to solve these problems, because you can't really then create infrastructure immediately. That could lead to problems both for the industry as well as the consumers. And we have seen that happen during the 80-20 regime. Can we not solve that? Can we not preempt that and solve that with the help of the whole industry? At IBJA, we are already talking to various people within the ministry to create this, and there are a few critical issues which need to be solved. But I'll just take you through what exactly are the current products that we have and how we can solve that. Today, I want to focus on only two things. One is that today the government is giving incentives in various forms, but where are those incentives going and probably where they could go? And the other is the noise and the confusion related to the existing products. For example, there are products, there are schemes like SEPA, and when you import Dore, there is incentive given by the government in terms of import duties. While these could continue because it addresses some other significant size of the market, but while this goes on, is there any incentive for the retail consumer to come out with his household gold? Absolutely not. Forget incentives, there is not even an awareness campaign being run. So how can we expect that the retail customers will deposit their old gold to solve the problem of import gold that we have? If the customers are giving an option whereby they can just seamlessly deposit their gold, minimum questions asked or no questions asked for smaller quantities per person, minimum documentation. And if the government wants to give an incentive, maybe they can give us interest subvention when it comes to the interest that they earn by depositing their old gold. So this is what basically overall the incentives that we are looking at the consumers could expect and could solve the problem. And it is not much. Similarly, just a parallel that I draw an example was the UPI. If, say, for example, today, for every transaction on UPI, if the customers were charged, today UPI would not have been successful. Similarly, if UPI was only available and made available to the public by only large banks, for example, it would not have been so successful. It's only because of new age companies like Paytm and PhonePe and all that became so successful, and it has actually led to a revolution in India. Similar thing can happen in India for the gold industry. UPI became successful simply because it was not complicated. Today, this is the GMS process. We can't believe that we have such a complicated GMS process for depositing of old gold so that it can solve the problem of import of gold. The old gold, like for example, I myself had deposited my mother's gold in SBI, for which I had to open an account, which took some time. After that, the same metal was given to the CPTC, where I had to physically go back along with the banker to the CPTC, waited there, melted the gold. We got the certificate. After that, it went back to the bank and the bank gave the certificates. And the funniest thing is that when the metal, which was given by the CPTC to the bank had to again give it to the government, and the government again auctioned it. So what you are talking about is a physical gold movement at 4 or 5 places, high cost, high risk. And that is the main reason why it is not successful, because the participants in this particular process are not really incentivized, or because this is not their core competency. What we are trying to say is, why not keep this process with the industry who is already handling gold in the simplest way. What we see is that already in the Indian market, there is a huge recycling market. An estimate is anywhere between 300 tons to 500 tons of old gold getting recycled in the form of people selling their old gold or exchanging their old gold for new jewelry or exchanging it for ingots or coins. That means there is a big industry already there. We don't need to make any changes to that industry. Use that very industry, very infrastructure to enable the GMS process or the deposit of old gold, because retail customers are very much interested in earning an annual interest. They are very much interested in moving the gold out from their household and keeping it in safe deposit so that they don't have the risk of theft. But because they are either not aware or the process is so complicated, today we don't have a successful scheme. What we propose at IBJA is that it should be in the hands of the market participants who are already handling it, like jewelers and refiners who know how to handle physical gold, and players who are supposed to not handle physical gold, like the exchanges. And that is the reason why it is proposed that it should be based on EGR, should be a separate mechanism altogether. So it's the refiners and the jewelers at one end and the exchange on the other end. Commissions Today, the commissions paid by the government to the bank are around 1 to 1.5% plus handling charges. These are not great commissions for banks because that's not their core product, but for jewelers, this is a huge incentive. Even if some fraction of this is given to the jewelers, they would be more than happy to prompt the customers to deposit their gold with the government or deposit under the EGR and earn annual interest rather than doing it through CPTC centers, which is happening now. And at the back end, everything should be taken care by refineries who are accredited and who have enough net worth. And that is something that the industry together can decide. So this is what we propose. The EGR should be linked to all the products, and I'll just explain in the next slide how it can work. It's a simple process. When the customer comes to the jeweler, he comes either to with the intention of buying or he comes with the intention of selling. So when he wants to sell his old gold, what would happen is immediately on a digital basis, the customer's Demat account is credited with EGR on the basis of the consent between the jeweler and the customer. If the customer is happy that, okay, the jeweler is saying that this is the quantity of gold and this is the purity of gold, and this is typically what happens in the sell old gold business, right? So the same thing can happen while instead of getting money, he gets a credit of EGR in his Demat account immediately. That is something which everyone is now used to with instant gratification like UPI and all. So say for example, in the first option, the customer comes through a jeweler, deposits his old gold. He has the option to take money, but he also has the option to convert into EGR because the jeweler will prompt him, because the jeweler and the customer have relationship. Once the EGR conversion happens, the customer can immediately choose to convert that EGR into GMS. The EGR, which is basically the deposit of gold in the Demat form, gets blocked or locked in the GMS for, say, for example, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or 15 years under the existing scheme, and he will earn annual interest through the same Demat account. That's the simplest way which we could look at so that the customer understands what's happening, and it's basically simple. Now at the back end, because the refiners are dealing with these jewelers already, the refiners would take the credit risk on the jewelers because they are already taking the credit risk today. And the Demat account of the refiner would get debited to that extent, to the extent that the Demat account of the retail customer gets credited. And that is where it could be fast also and simpler also. Similarly, when it comes to the purchase of new gold, it can happen through EGR. And what happens once you have EGR, you either take delivery of gold in the future, you deposit under GMS, or there's one more option which is already there as an infrastructure, which is the securities lending and borrowing platform of both NSE and BSE. What it means is that you have your EGR as a security which you want to lend it out, and then there are borrowers on the platform who can borrow it. Now that will be market determined, what the borrowers want at what rate and what the lenders are willing to lend at what rate. That means the market will decide at what rate the EGR should get traded or borrowed and lent, which means on the borrowing side will be the jewelers and manufacturers, on the lending side will be investors and retail customers. The benefits are very simple. Obviously, physical movement gets reduced, customers are happy, the refineries play a major role because the refineries are the one who are already handling the physical gold. Jewelers will be happy because they'll be a part of the whole scheme. They will earn an incentive out of it. And the most important is that the current GML, that's the gold metal loan, where a lot of smaller jewelers are not able to avail GML simply because they're too small to be handled by banks, or sometimes they find the process to be complicated because GML in India is only dollar based. The settlement has to happen at the end of 6 months on the basis of the international prices. And because India is at a disparity for a large number of months during the year, the jewelers actually have to purchase gold at a higher price because the international prices are higher, which means they pay a premium to the bank also and they pay a higher price. And that is the reason why a lot of small jewelers have been out of the GML. Also in GML, you can't settle currently in metal form. It can be settled only in dollar form. What this enables is, because the EGR is a security version of gold, Demat gold, the jewelers, whenever they have metal, they can deposit, convert into EGR and pay it off back on the SLB platform. So just the way you borrow, and you can give it back also and close your GML. And because you don't have to hedge gold, because it's metal to metal, it saves a lot of cost on hedging of gold, and the cost is only related to the borrowing and lending of physical metal. So the retail customer who is lending earns a higher interest, and the jeweler who is borrowing is actually borrowing at a lower interest because he's not hedging the gold. However, there are issues, and IBJA is trying its best to liaison with the government to solve these issues, and the biggest issue is related to GST. Today, the EGR has been launched by BSE, but the volumes are low because there is no provision in the GST Act, right, Surinder bhai, for conversion of physical gold into a demat or demat into physical gold. So that is one major hurdle as of now, and this is what our request is to the government to solve this immediately. GMS should be allowed as a deposit with link to EGR, which should be simpler for the government to do. And SLB, the Securities and Lending Borrowing Platform, should allow EGRs to be borrowed and lent against securities which they already used to, whether it's government securities or FDs or whatever. We have also given a solution for settlement of GST through a centralized agency. Lastly, I just want to say that, there is a big coincidence. The largest refiners in our industry, they all are the V. But we need to become V. And I'll just explain why I'm saying this. Almost all the refineries have the key persons with the name V. But today we are in a situation where we are VI but not VWE. So once we get together and become V, this is the only way we can solve the problem. Because if we don't become V, we soon will become V. जहाँ पे हालत खराब है, government needs us, consumers need us, but we don't know how to solve this problem. Thank you.